Hello and welcome back to Tech and EduSpark Hub, where technology meets education. Imagine having a magical container where you can store a lot of things like your friend's name, your exam scores, or even mix all of them together, and you can also rearrange them any way you want or even remove some or add more in seconds. In Python, that container is called a list. And by the end of this video, you will not only know how the list works, but you'll be able to use them like a pro to solve real problems. Stick with me till the end because I will also share a secret tricks that beginners often miss. Firstly, let's say we have a variable called fruits and we assign it with an equal sign to an empty list. An empty list is denoted using a square bracket, and in this empty list we can put several numbers of fruits we want in a string since the fruits are in characters of words. So in this case, I'll be putting several fruits in this empty list as seen on the screen. You can see we have multiple numbers of fruits in this list, and the list can hold multiple values in a single variable, and this is much more better than storing each fruit in a separate variables. You can put as many fruits as you want, and you can see when I'm writing my fruits, I'm putting them in a string and I'm separating it with a comma. And this is a way you separate each values in a list by using a comma and putting them in a string. So far you are dealing with characters of words. Now that we have a multiple values or multiple numbers of fruits in this list, you can see we have assigned this list to a variable called fruits, and we can get a hold of everything in this list using the variable called fruits. So let's go ahead and print the variable called fruits. And when we run this code, you can see it has printed the list of fruits that we have in that variable, and you can see everything is in the same order as we put it in the list. But what if we want to get a particular fruit in the list without wanting it to print everything as seen on the console? This is known as accessing items in a list, and to access a particular item in a list, this is where the indexing comes in, and the power of index makes us to access a particular item in any list that we have. So for example, let's say we want it to print apple alone in this list. We can see from the list, apple is the first item in that list. And in programming, when numbering a list, we start from the number 0 instead of 1 because 0 is also part of numbers in computer. So in this case, the index of apple is 0 in this list, followed by banana, which is 1, followed by pineapple, which is 2, and it goes on like that. Now that we know that the apple index in the list is 0 and we want it to print apple alone, we can simply use the print function to print the variable fruits. So this way you can see we have tapped into the variables of this list, and to get a hold of the apple that we want it to print in this list or the first item in this list, we can just simply tap into the list denotation using the square bracket, and we can put the index of whatever we want it to print out in that list. And in our case, we know that the index of apple in this list is 0, so we can just simply put the number 0. And when we run this code, you can see it print out apple alone in this list. And this is a way you can access items in a list. So you can play around this code by putting each index in this list. And when you keep running this code, you can see it will print out the particular index that you put in that list. So just know that you always start with the number 0 when numbering an item in a list. Also, let's say we want to print out the last item in the list. And in this case, we know that the last item in this list is the blueberry. And since we know that the index number of apple, which is the first item in this list, is 0, we can just simply count the number down to the last item in that list, which is the blueberry. So counting from the number 0, which is the first item in this list, and when we count down to the last item in this list, we can see it falls on the index 6, and we can just simply put the index 6 in this fruit list. And when we run this code, you can see it will print out the last item in that list, which is the blueberry. But what if we have a longer list? Counting that will be much more stressful. So in that case, we can just simply use a shortcut to get the last item in whatever list we are trying to work with. And to use the shortcut, we can just simply put the -1 in this case. And what the -1 does is to get the last item in whatever list we are working with. And when we run this code, you can see we are still going to get the same result. And you can try playing around with this by putting -2 in this case, and it will get the second to the last list, which is the cherry in this case, and you can see as shown on the console. and you can try playing with this code as much as you want. Next up, let's look at modifying a list. To modify a list, let's say the apple, which is the first item in this list, we want another fruit to replace this item by putting another fruit as the first item in this list. Instead of tampering with what we have initially in this list by going to edit it, we can just simply tap into the fruit variable and put the list in the front of this fruit and get a hold of the index of whatever item we want to modify in this list. And like I said earlier, we want another fruit to replace this apple in this list. And since we know that the index number of apple in this list is 0, we can just simply tap into the index number of the item in that list, and we can assign it with an equal sign to whatever fruit we want to replace it with. And in my case, I'll be using the strawberry. So you can see I put the strawberry in a string, which means whenever you are dealing with a characters of word in a list, you have to put them in a string. And in this case, when we print fruits, and when we run this code, you can see it has changed the first item in that list to what we modify it with. And in my case, I'm using the strawberry. You can see from the initial list, which is the work of this print fruits in line 2, you can see we are still having apple in this list. And when we modify the list in line 9 in this case, you can see it has changed to whatever we modify it with. And you can play around this code by putting each index or different index in this code. And when I put the index of banana, which is 1, you can see when I run this code, it has changed the banana in this initial list to the strawberry that I modify it with. And this way, you can modify a list without having to tamper with what you have initially. And lastly, let's look at the addition and removal of items in a list. So in this case, let's say we want to add another fruit to the item in this list. Instead of going to what we have initially by editing it, we can just simply tap to the variable of the list we are working with. And in this case, we know that the variable of the list is fruits. And once we tap to the variable of the list we are working with, there's a Python inbuilt keyword which is known as the append function. And this append allows us to add extra item in a list. And to use this, we can just simply use the keyword .append. And once we use the keyword .append, we can simply add the fruits or put the fruits that we want to append to this list. And in my case, I'll be putting orange in this case. And this way, when I print fruits again, and when I run this code, you can see it has added what I append to this list. And this is a way you can add or append several items to a list. And to remove an item in a list, instead of tampering with what we have initially by editing it, we can just simply tap into the variable of the list we are working with as usual. And in our case, the variable of the list we are working with is fruits. And to remove any item in this list, let's say we want to remove the first item in the list, which is the apple. And in this case, we can just simply write the .remove keyword. And in this .remove, we can put the string of the item we want to remove in that list. And in my case, since we want to remove the first item, which is the apple in this list, I'll be putting apple in this .remove. And when we print fruits again, and when we run this code, you can see it has removed the first item in the list, which is apple in this case. But there is a shorter way of doing this, which is by tapping into the fruit variable and putting the list in front of this fruit variable and tapping into the index of the item we want to remove in this list. And since we will be removing apple, which is the first item in this list, we can simply pass the index 0 in this list. And when we run this code again, you can see it is still going to produce the same result. And you can play around this code by putting any index of the item you want to remove in this list. So let me just put 1 in this case. You can see when I run this code, it will remove strawberry in this case. And this way, you can see we have our first item in the list back, but the second item, which is the strawberry, is gone in this list. And this is a way you can add or remove an item in a list. And that is how Python list can help you organize, modify, and power up your code from simple storage to advanced tricks. If this video helped you, don't forget to hit the like button so more learners can find it. Subscribe to Tech and EduSpark Hub and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next lesson where we'll even go more deeper. And hey, try creating your own list and share your results in the comments. I'll be checking and reply to as many as I can. And until next time, keep coding, keep sparking your ideas with Tech and EduSpark Hub. and I will see you in the next one.